Hello guys, this is Ben in Parts here. Welcome back to episode 12 of this Cryptid Cast podcast where I discuss cryptids, I break down their sightings, their reports, what they could be and if they could be real or not. And the last few episodes have gone absolutely amazingly. The feedback from you guys has been wonderful and I'm very, very thankful. If you haven't seen it before, I would recommend you check out my episode on the Chernobyl Captar, the Chernobyl Bigfoot, a supposed radioactive Bigfoot that exists out there. And if you want something a little cuter, I would recommend the podcast on the duck-footed dum-dum, an incredibly, incredibly cute cat-like cryptid with some amazing lumberjack stories behind it. And if you want the cutest cryptid ever, in fact just as cute as the other one, I would recommend checking out my podcast episode on the cactus cat, and I'll link all those below in the podcast. And today though, I've got a real treat for you. I've got the Splinter cat, possibly one of America's most strange, unusual feline cryptids, and I've even got some extracts from books that I'm going to read out for you here, just for your viewing pleasure, listening pleasure, whether you're listening to this in the car, whether you're listening on your laptop. As usual, please subscribe, please like the video and comment because it helps me a ton in the algorithm, and leave any suggestions you have. But what is a Splinter cat? Well, a Splinter cat is a fearsome critter, one of those lumberjack-style cryptids with origins in the oral traditions of post-colonial North America, when the frontiers were expanding westward, when lumberjacks were moving out there, when there were no cameras, cell phones or TVs, and things spread from oral traditions. The Splinter cat very much comes from that heritage, and it's very fairy tale-esque. It's very... Do I want to say archaic? Do I want to say jumbled? But in a very fascinating way. The Splinter cat is a big cat that's maybe the size of a tiger or a puma, and it even has a striped hide just like that. But you might think, well, what's different about it? Well, the difference is that it has an incredibly tough skull. Some people portray it as having incredibly tough bone on its skull, like a big bone-like battering ram. And it has that battering ram for a reason. It uses that battering ram to smash into trees. It stands back a bit, it paws the ground, and it charges forward. It hurtles, battering into the tree and splintering it. Hence the name Splinter cat. But you might be thinking to yourself, well, why does it splinter this wood? Does it eat the wood? Does it eat the tree? That's very unusual for a big cat. No. No, it shatters the wood to expose what's inside. And inside trees, what do you find? You find bees and their honey, you find raccoons, you find squirrels, you find other little animals that might have taken shelter in there, and it eats them. It batters the tree down, it opens the tree up, and it devours these creatures that are sheltering in there, or their honey in the case of bees, or anything else it can find. Now, you might think to yourself, well, how does it survive? Given the fact that there must be not a huge amount of trees with these things inside of them in each wood. Well, the Splinter cat is said to be rare. It's said to be rare, it's said to live in isolated areas that people aren't too aware of, and it's also said to be quite territorial. It's said that it defends its territory quite ardently, it doesn't like people coming into it, and so that's why it's not hunted, that's why it's not killed, that's why it isn't really encroached upon by people so much, because it's very aggressive and territorial and defends itself. And also, another reason why it manages to stay alive and not starve to death, and why it somehow manages to always find things in these trees, is that it's not a very intelligent animal. You might think it sounds like an intelligent, ingenious way of getting food, but the Splinter cat really is fundamentally a blunt instrument. It batters its way into areas where it thinks it'll find its prey and it eats them. And it's said that it just strikes random trees. It'll strike a whole bunch of trees and see if it'll find something in them, then it'll move on to other trees and it'll strike into those. It's not especially clever. And that's exacerbated by the fact that since it's always bashing into things, it ends up getting a horrible headache. It ends up getting a horrible headache, and it's in a very foul mood, and that links to its territoriality. The Splinter cat is not the kind of big cat that you're meant to approach. Not so much because it will eat you or carry out, the traditional attacks against you of normal cats, by tearing you to pieces and eating you, but because it's in a bad mood, it's in a foul mood, and it will immediately butt you and attack you. It's absolutely fascinating. So what could it be? I think this part's very straightforward. It could be that some lumberjacks, especially while under the influence of alcohol, have seen a mountain lion or an out-of-place big cat of some kind, and they've maybe seen it in the shadows, or they've been under the influence, and they've spread an exaggerated story. They could have seen an animal with an illness or some kind of mental retardation striking itself into a tree and thought that was its normal behaviour, or it could just be a tall tale that's come up around the campfire. However, I have 3 books here that I want to read extracts from for you because they're amazing. The Splinter Cat from Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods, written in 1910 by William T. Cox, The Splinter Cat from Fearsome Critters in 1939 by Henry H. Treon, and the Splinter Cat from Yarns of the Big Woods by Art Childs, which is another great book. I will read the first book here. A widely distributed and frightfully destructive animal is the Splinter Cat. It is found from the Great Lakes to the Gulf and eastward to the Atlantic Ocean, but in the Rocky Mountains has been reported from only a few localities. Apparently the Splinter Cat inhabits that part of the country in which wild bees and raccoons abound. These are its natural food, and the animal puts in every dark and stormy night shattering trees in search of coons or honey. It doesn't use any judgment in selecting coon trees or bee trees, but just smashes one tree after the other until a hollow one containing food is found. The method used by the animal in its destructive work is simple but effective. It climbs one tree, and from the uppermost branches, bounds down across toward the tree it wishes to destroy. Striking squarely with its hard face, the Splinter Cat passes on, leaving the tree broken and shattered as though struck by lightning or snapped off by the wind. Appalling destruction has been wrought by this animal in the Gulf states, where its work in the shape of a wrecked forest is often ascribed to windstorms, which could also be what people are mistaking it for. And in the second book we find, how often do we see big trees that have been frequently snapped off, split or shattered? Such breakage is frequently erroneously ascribed to lightning, high winds or snow and ice. These natural factors do cause some of the damage, but the experienced woodsman knows well that the bulk of it results from the moronic activities of the Splinter Cat. This powerful feline, harmless to mankind, is found in nearly all the timbered regions of North America. Like many of the cat tribes, he is strictly a night traveller, and hence is rarely observed, but he's often heard, and the abundance of his work is ample evidence of his existence, numbers and activity. A heavy, chunky body with a short wheelbase, mounted on tremendously powerful legs, with the countenance of a wedge-shaped nose formed of unusually dense bone, the Splinter Cat goes a-roaming in search of hollow trees, since bees, honey and coons are his favourite diet. He climbs a tree, guns himself at the desired hole, and projects himself at it with terrific force. The bony nasal produces splinters and shatters the stem, sometimes snapping it clean off. If the cat finds food in the ruptured trunk, he is temporarily appeased. If not, he goes immediately for another tree. And right there is the big trouble. The cat doesn't use any judgment in selecting trees. He just smashes one after the other until he gets a meal. Unlike more intelligent parties, he doesn't seem to be able to learn the outward signs of a bee or coon tree. So we can see here agreement on many of the commonalities of the Splinter Cat, but some disagreements. Some say he's inoffensive to humans, some say he will carry out attacks and batter them when he's in a bad mood, which is almost all the time. And we also see that many people are explaining battered down woods they see by the Splinter Cat, which could also show the origins of this myth, if indeed it is a myth. People are seeing shattered down trees, they assume the wood hasn't done it, they're under the influence of alcohol or want to tell a tall tale to their friends around the campfire or a mixture of these, so they blame the Splinter Cat. And for the third extract, a breathless hush crept over the woods. There was no sound, save the slight stirring of leaves in the sultry air and the half-fearful twittering of birds. Nature seemed to be waiting, with her finger on her lips. Then the storm broke. Darkness rolled over everything with terrifying suddenness. The trees forged against the inky sky, the thunder rose dully, and jagged flashes of light tore across the scene. Somewhere near there was a sharp crash, followed by a crackling sound and the odour of sulphur. "The Splinter Cat is sure on a rampage tonight," remarked the guide, squinting out of the window. The little group of hunters, huddled together in the cabin, were silent. "I've only seen a Splinter Cat once," the guard continued, as though to himself. "He just comes out during an electrical storm. He's got a body something like a cat, and he's nearly as big as an elephant. His light-coloured hide has wide black stripes crossing his back, from his head to the tip of his tail. Kind of a pretty-looking animal. The funny thing about him is his large, round stone head, with just one eye in front. He swings his head from side to side and strikes a tree, knocking it into splinters, which is what he feeds on. Whee! There he goes again. Every time he strikes a tree, it makes a flash like lightning and a noise like thunder. If you watch here, maybe you can get a glimpse of him." Somehow, no one cared to go to the window to see the Splinter Cat. So what do you think? Those are 3 book extracts. That was The Splinter Cat from Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods by William T. Cox, The Splinter Cat from Fearsome Critters by Henry H. Treon, and The Splinter Cat from Yarns of the Big Woods by Art Childs. So we see multiple different descriptions. Some say it comes out at night during electric storms. Many say people are too terrified to even go and see it because of its fearsome reputation. Others say it's just a stupid kind of lovable beast, like some people's stereotypical descriptions of a bear. So what do you guys think? Has anyone seen this before? Does anyone have any relatives who have? Any distant relatives who've told tales of seeing it? Has anyone heard any myths or folklore? Please drop those in the description. I will see you tomorrow for the next episode. I upload every day between 5:30 and 6 p.m. English time. And please leave me a comment. Please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a ton in the algorithm, and I look forward to seeing you for episode 12.